Hello and welcome to the Chronicles of Dragonlance. In this show, my co-host and I delve into the novels and stories of the incredibly famous and lengthy fantasy series Dragonlance. We're going to go book by book and delve into the secrets that made this series so groundbreaking and legendary. Hello and welcome back to our Dragonlance podcast. My name is Shivam, and with me today is my friend John. Say hi, John.
Hi everyone, Jonathan Howard.
Today, we're going to be talking about the prologue to Dragons of Autumn Twilight, the first book of the Dragonlance saga. And in this prologue, it is one of the iconic intros into a Dungeons & Dragons style fantasy. In it, we have all of the typical hallmarks of what makes a D&D game or a D&D novel work. You know, you're in an inn. A mysterious old man tells you a story that sets you off on an adventure. It has become a cliche over the decades, but that cliche definitely started somewhere. And if it was going to start somewhere, it might as well start here.
Yeah, so the prologue to Dragons of Autumn Twilight is called The Old Man. And the book opens from the point of view of Tika Whalen. She is a teenager. She works at the Inn of the Last Home, which is in the small town of Solus on the world of Krynn. All this is really brought up quickly, pretty organically, even though she's just cleaning up, preparing to open the inn. The inn's old and rustic, and the thing that stands out and the thing that amazed me as a kid when I first read it is that, this inn is a treehouse.
Yeah.
The whole city, or, it's really a small town, is a treehouse. They're all in these giant trees. They call them
Valenwoods.
Like I said, the story opens and Tika's doing last-minute preparations.
Yeah, before we go on, though, let's talk a little bit about this setting. This setting here, the town of Solus, the name itself meaning comfort or care, they gave this name for a reason, because this is a post-apocalyptic fantasy. So, of course, you start the town of Solus where these people have come as their... And, the Inn of the Last Home is the name of the inn.
It's a little on the nose.
Yeah. According to the lore, the Inn of the Last Home is named because this was meant to be, after the cataclysm, after the big event that destroyed the world, the last home that any of these people would need to find. They found a secure valley next to a big lake surrounded by mountains. They built their homes in gigantic trees so that people wouldn't be able to attack them very easily. And then they have this inn here, which just puts the cap on the whole thing, calling it the Inn of the Last Home because it's the last home we will ever need. And it's seriously super evocative, super cool. I can still remember right now, seeing that and just visualizing these gigantic trees. Because, at the front plate of the chapter, there's this picture of the inn on this giant Valenwood tree with the staircase curling up around it. And it's become one of the most iconic places in D&D, in my opinion. It's such a cool scenario, just a cool, setting.
Was this stolen from The Hobbit?
The idea of a treehouse? They live among trees. I don't think they live in trees. If it wasn't taken from Tolkien, it's definitely not a new thing. Old David the Gnome style stories and folklore have lots of people living in trees. And it's definitely taken from folktales and from Northern Europe kind of stories, but it's also really cool.
Yeah.
It's a really cool idea. Remember, this is a story coming a decade after D&D has come out, so they've had a lot of time to think of really nifty towns that are fantasy style.
When I was reading this for the first time, I was thinking, it's like the Ewok houses, but
yeah,
better, right? Because it's not so primitive, right?
Exactly.
These people they're a little more further along the technology tree than the Ewoks were.
The technology tree, I get it. I was so disappointed to find out the Valenwood trees weren't real. Because when I was a kid, I absolutely wanted to live in a giant tree house in a Valenwood tree.
They're kind of real. We have redwoods here in California.
Yeah, but you think that the state of California is going to let us build a gigantic inn in a redwood tree?
Outside of the one that already exists in a redwood tree, no. In Sequoia National Park, I think there's at least two buildings, structures located in the base of redwoods that are still alive. So if you want some sense of what that's like, you can experience it. You won't be in the trees and up top. And certainly no one will be because it's illegal to climb redwoods.
But if you also go live out in the rural parts of the country or the world, you'll find cool houses in trees. Go to the rainforest in South America or Central America, or build a house in a banyan tree in India or something. But here we are in these big, gigantic, deciduous trees that look absolutely gorgeous with these huge buildings built inside of them. And Tika is wiping the bar.
We're then introduced to the owner of the bar. His name is Otik, and he's a father figure.
Yeah.
A little gruff, a little rough on the exterior, but a real heart of gold.
He is exactly the iconic innkeeper that you think from a D&D adventure. The balding guy, he's got a cloth, he's polishing his mugs in the background. He brews his ale from the spring at the foot of the tree. And it's funny because there's plot points of him. How do you get the beer up from the base to the top? They've got a dolly in the back that's jury rigged that they have to go and drag up and down with pulleys and things. I'm sure it's not the most efficient way to do things, but nonetheless, Otik sits there, he makes his potatoes, he lives in this inn, and he takes care of this young orphan named Tika.
And this is how we're introduced. They start talking to each other, Tika and Otik, and they're just talking about we've been so busy here at the inn, and everyone's coming in, and it's kind of like an info dump. This is where we're introduced to a lot of things. They start talking about a high theocrat. And I don't know about you, but as soon as I heard the phrase high theocrat, not a good thing.
It's funny because when I first read these books, I didn't know what a theocrat was. I mean, I was 8 or 9, but now I look at that and I'm like, wow, that's a really evocative way to just tell it like it is, man. High theocrat sure sounds like a big meddling angry dude.
I knew what a theocrat was. I don't know how, probably because I was raised in a Christian church and I was always interested in religion, so I knew what a theocrat was, but just it doesn't sound like father, it doesn't sound like priest, it doesn't sound like pastor, it doesn't even sound like cardinal or pope, right? High theocrat.
Yeah. No, that definitely sounds like a middle manager who is here to ruin your day.
Yeah. And so they mention this high theocrat, and you just know something's not good. They talk about there's these disappearances, there's kidnappings. This is not a good time. In Solus, things might be okay, but in the world of Krynn, things are not okay. There's a lot that they're putting on you. There are talk of new gods. There's rumors of war. There's an event called the Cataclysm. Tika's an orphan. She was raised by Otik. This is a big dump. And right now, as I'm reading it, I don't know what the new gods are. Rumors of war, what does that mean? I don't know anything about the Cataclysm. And they start filling this information in. But for now, these are just real good hooks.
Yeah.
They want to keep you reading because this high theocrat, what's that? People are disappearing and people are nervous, so I'm interested in that. And Margaret and Tracy just keep hitting you with and the Cataclysm, and there's rumors of war, and Tika's an orphan, and you just want to I want answers.
This is such a fantastic way to open an adventure, though, right? Because when you're doing, think about it. Margaret and Tracy both come from the D&D background, right? And what a DM does in the beginning is you set up an adventure, you set them up with a dozen different hooks. You're not giving them all the information right off the top. You are creating a pathway that they're then going to follow and things that they want to follow up on and look at. And Margaret and Tracy are absolute masters of building a story in terms of starting from nowhere and creating an entire world in a matter of pages that suddenly think about what right? You just said, there's been something that's happened called the Cataclysm. And since that time, there's been talk of war. So we don't know when that was. We don't know where we are now. But something happened big enough to get a capital letter. And since then, people have been talking about war. There were gods. We know that because there are new gods. Those old gods aren't here anymore. They don't exist anymore or something. But the new gods and their theocrat, which is a real evocative title, he's out there haranguing people about these new gods. So either the new gods are very new or the old gods just left or something. We don't really know, but that's a lot. That tells you a whole lot about this world, that this is a world of turmoil. This is a world of change.
Yeah.
And it's cool. It's really evocative. And it makes you, in the first 2 pages, it makes you want to know what's happening.
Yeah, this is only, I'm opening my book here and I'm 1, 2, 3. It's 4 1/4 pages long, this introduction. This prologue. And before Otak or Tika can even start to tell us more, the old man comes in. But they didn't hear him.
Now, I love this because it is one of the greatest cliches in the world. A mysterious old man walks into a bar and dumps stuff on you. And it's just one of these lines that, you sit there, this old man who walks in, he stood in the doorway leaning on his worn oak staff and peered around the inn. The tattered hood of his plain gray robe was drawn over his head, its shadow obscuring the features of his face except for his hawkish shining eyes. That is a D&D text box right there. That is telling you something. This man is some kind of wizard, maybe? I don't know. With it's a fantasy world, we expect some kind of wizard.
Well, and it's magic.
Yeah.
This is a building in a tree connected by rope bridges. Like, when you step on wood, it creaks, right? Like, this probably place has never been quiet. Like, we should have heard this guy coming from a mile away, but all of a sudden, he's just in the doorway. And he starts moving furniture around. Like, he's just doing his thing.
But also, think about the way this guy looks. He's literally just Merlin the magician walking in the door, right? Like, a gray robe and an oak staff. Like, he's one pointy hat away from being the iconic maid.
Well, and I don't know if Margaret Weis and Tracy Hickman are, like, familiar with Joseph Campbell.
Oh.
Again, you don't have to read Joseph Campbell to know his mythic arc, right? Because it's in all our basic stories anyway. But, like, when an old mysterious man shows up, right? When Obi-Wan Kenobi walks into screen, like, we all know what's going to happen here. Like, this guy's important.
Now, let me interrupt you a minute and just talk a little bit about Margaret and Tracy and about where they came from in terms of just writing these books. So the way this works, this partnership has since like 1984 or so, is that Tracy has come up with this plot and this idea and this world, and Margaret is the one who's actually writing all the story. She does all the writing. She sends it to Tracy, who then goes and rewrites it and adds his bits and bobs of flavor and character, and then sends it back to Margaret, who then polishes to give it all one voice. And yes, it's very perceptive of you to notice Joseph Campbell here, because Joseph Campbell is like one of the two Josephs that Tracy Hickman draws upon very, very heavily to create this Dragonlance saga. The other one, of course, being Joseph Smith. And we'll definitely talk about him more later. But yes, this book is absolutely setting up the Joseph Campbell monomyth. It's also setting up the very iconic D&D. You go to an inn, you meet an old man, you start an adventure.
And that's right out of D&D Manual 1, right? Like,
oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah, you're supposed to start at an inn.
All good adventures start at inns.
And there's a quote here that I didn't get until I read this time, where he's like, a party. The thought seemed to strike the old man as funny. He chuckled. Yes, girl, it will be a party as such the world of Krynn has never seen before the cataclysm. Be ready, Tika Whalen. Be ready. That's a pun.
Mm-hmm.
She's thinking, because he's dragging he's moving furniture around, he's asking for more chairs, and she's like, oh, are you going to throw a party? And he's like, yes, it's a party. And he's like, oh, it's a party, as in the party of adventurers that are going to go on an adventure.
Yup.
And then the last thing that you pick up, the book points it out, is she hadn't told him his name, right? If you were reading this and you were so slow that you didn't pick up that this is a magic man, the authors have told you now, oh, he's a magic man. He knows her name.
Well, yeah, because, I mean, it's funny, like, when he walks in, Odick is like, come in, Greybeard. Tika, find our guest a chair. He must be tired after that long climb, because the inn is way at the top of a tree. And the old man replied, climb? Yeah, climb. A great many stairs, of course. And you're like, oh, this man did not walk up those stairs. Obviously, they would have heard him. And he's like, you need to put these chairs in the shadowy corner. And Tika's like, it's the middle of the day, dude. The sun is shining on it. She's like, yeah, but it won't be later, will it? Ah, forehead right there. It's definitely setting something up. And of course, you turn the page. There's a picture of Kisanth coming out of the well and the logo that says Book 1. Boom, you're hooked.
Then, when you start Chapter 1, I was expecting, okay, now we're going to learn more about Tika, we're going to learn more about Otik. The authors are going to tell us some stuff here. They're not going to, and that's not at all what happens.
Continuity break.
Yeah, you're dropped once again into the middle of some other action. The prologue opened with Tika cleaning up, preparing to open, Otik comes in, and then boom. Part 1, Chapter 1.
Old friends meet, a rude interruption. One of the things the Chronicles did was that all of the chapters were always like a sentence or two, like not just like a name or a one-word thing. No, they're always like a phrase or a couplet. It's a weird kind of stylistic choice, but it's pretty neat because it definitely sets you up to see this story.
Well, and I think once you read the whole story, you could probably just flip through the chapter titles and get a good summary. It helps locate what you're looking for, right? Like, I know, oh, old friends meet, a rude interruption. Flip, flip, flip. I know exactly what's happening in this chapter. Flip to like chapter 4, right? And the heading there also kind of clues you in. There's a lot of meaning to them that you don't get until after you've finished that chapter or the next couple chapters, right? Like explaining the story without explaining the story because you don't know the story yet.
Yeah, and this chapter especially is foundational, right? Like, this is the one where we actually meet the party that is going to be handling the entire story, really the entire saga from here. These characters go on to become legends unto themselves. It really is just an absolutely iconic... I mean, I say that a lot, but man, some of these beginning chapters in this book especially just really are iconic. Like, we start by meeting the sentences, Flint Fireforge collapsed on a moss-covered boulder. Now, just by that itself, if you're a D&D player, you can look at this guy's name and you see, okay, his first name is a rock. His second name is some kind of blacksmithing thing. That's a dwarven name. But because Margaret and Tracy didn't know who's reading, their next sentence is, his old dwarven bones has supported him long enough and were unwilling to continue without complaint. So they want you to know, A, there's not just humans in here, there are also dwarves. There's other races. What is a dwarf? Well, I mean, a dwarf in D&D and Dragonlance, a short, half-sized kind of humanoid character, stocky, long beard, lots of facial hair. They dig holes, they live underground.
They're really good with metal. They're great artisans.
Yeah, we're talking Tolkien. Dragonlance does not shy away from the D&D cliches of what races are, and the D&D cliches came straight from Tolkien.
Like you said, he's dwarvish, he's old bone. Kind of think of Roger Murtaugh from Lethal Weapon. Flint Fireforge is a guy who's going to say, I'm too old for this shit. And then he's going to get up and do it anyway.
Yes, exactly.
It's Murtaugh, but half the size. We find out that he's going home to Solus, right? And we were just introduced in the prologue to Solus. So now we know, maybe Flint knows Tika. Maybe he knows Otik.
But also, he's been away.
Yeah, on a quest.
And that's one of the things. It's like, I should have never left, and I'll be damned if I'm ever leaving again. So, this is a dwarf who is not up for moving around. But mind you, this is a town full of trees. This is a town where everybody lives in trees. Dwarves live underground or on hills. He is obviously not of this town initially, but he lives here. So, something about the egalitarianism of Solus comes right through.
It also points out that he's not super dwarfish. There are no other dwarves in Solus.
No, there aren't. There are a few gully dwarves, but we'll cover them when we get there.
And he's whistling, and we know he's nervous when he whistles. He seems like a homebody, right? He's worried that his house is falling apart.
One of the things I like about this chapter, especially the description here, is that Margaret uses an old technique in order to give the audience a vision into what Solus looks like by having a character come in from far away, stand over the crest of a hill and look down. And then he can sit there and see like the mountainside below him formed one side of a high mountain bowl carpeted in autumn splendor. The Valenwood trees were ablaze in the season's colors, a brilliant red and gold fading into the purple of the Carolus peaks behind. The flawless azure sky among the trees was repeated in the waters of Crystalmere Lake. Thin columns of smoke curled amongst the tree tops, the only sign of the presence of Solus. A soft spreading haze blanketed the vale with sweet aroma of home fires burning. Look at that whole paragraph.
This is the skybox in a video game when you walk over the hill, right? In the introduction of a video game. Like this is recent, like Breath of the Wild, when Link gets out of the sleep chamber and you go over that first hill and then like boom, and you see Hyrule Castle.
Exactly. Like this is where the music would start in the background and the logo would kind of drop from the ceiling and you just get that like Dragonlance and like the chill like homeward sound music like, things are good. They won't be good, but they're good now. And I mean, we learned a lot, right? We learned that the valley is full of Valenwood trees. There's a gigantic lake behind it and these huge mountains. So it's a very protected valley. Flint sits and grumbles about going, and he's 148 years old. He's just like, why did I leave? And then a distant voice.
Well, and also he pulls out an old knife, right? Or a piece of wood.
Yeah.
He starts whittling, and it says that he was a metalsmith. They're dropping the bits and pieces that, like, if you know Tolkien, or you already know about. But like you said, we're introducing people to dwarves, right?
Yes.
Not everyone has read Tolkien. We're introducing people to these tropes.
Yeah. So we know that he's an old retired metalsmith. He likes to whittle, he likes to carve, he likes to craft things. And he's also 148 years old. So that is really old. So right there, we're like, okay, dwarves live a long time, apparently. Not that long, so maybe twice as long as humans do, but he's old. He's 148 and retired. And then a voice comes from the distance and says, "You'll never learn, not if you live to be 248. And there's the second cliche we get, which is dropping the wood, the dwarf's hand moved from the dagger to the handle of his axe. Dwarves always have an axe. Why? I don't know, but I loved axes. And so from there, I totally love dwarves too. I was like, this is cool.
This is where we meet Tanis. We don't learn his full name here.
No.
He's tall, but not too tall. He's graceful, but he's not too graceful.
Yeah, I mean, the man's walk was marked by an easy grace, an elvish grace, Flint would have said. Yet the man's body had the thickness and tight muscles of a human, with facial hair that was definitely humankind's. So there, we know, okay, he is some kind of human, but he's also not. And he's got a brownish red beard. He was dressed in soft leather, carefully tooled in the intricate designs that elves loved. But no elf in the world of Krynn could grow a beard. No elf, but... Tanis? Said Flint hesitantly. The same. So right there, first off, we know that this other character is obviously some kind of forest man. He's got a lot of like a sword. He's got a bow. He's a very typical ranger class, like we would know in D&D. He's a guy who lives outdoors and does outdoorsy things.
And we know he's elvish, but
yeah, he's graceful, but he's also stocky and has a beard. So he is a half elf. And so we're told, A, they're elves, B, they can interbreed with humans. These are all common things you would know in D&D, but if you don't, you know that this guy is a half-elf. And he's obviously good friends with Flint.
Because they hug each other, they haven't seen each other in 5 years. They both comment on the fact that, like, oh, a lot can happen in the world for 5 years, right? Because humans live short lives, and a lot can change. They don't know quite what to expect as they go back to Solith.
And then Flint says one of the most iconic lines in all of Dragonlance, "Why the beard? You were ugly enough." It's because Tanis, apparently, for a long time, is a clean-shaven elf, like all elves are. But this is what he says in response, which sets up a whole world unto itself. "I have been in lands that were not friendly to those of elven blood. The beard, a gift from my human father," he said with bitter irony, "did much to hide my heritage." Flint grunted. He knew this wasn't the complete truth. Although the half-elf abhorred killing, Tanis would not have been one to hide from a fight behind a beard. Right there, A, we know that Tanis can be a scrapper, B, he doesn't like to fight, and C, there are places in the world that being elvish is a liability. Margaret and Tracy set up this whole real war-torn world here. It's really, really cool.
And there's a little bit, the tiniest drop, there's some backstory to Tanis. A gift from my human father, he says.
With irony. You could tell he's not happy about that one. It's weird because one of the tropes of D&D is that half-elves are almost always, or at least in the early days, were definitely a product of less than ideal situations, it felt like. It was almost always some kind of tragedy associated with it. Like, I don't know what it was about the 70s and 80s, but interracial interbreeding was not supported as much, let's say. You rarely see a half-elf in these books who's happy about being a half-elf.
That was baked into the text?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Dungeons & Dragons, it should be said, was created by Gary Gygax and Dave Arneson in Wisconsin in the early 70s based on, war games and stuff. And both of them come from a very conservative evangelical Christian background. When you look at the original D&D and first edition text, there's a whole lot of inherent racism, inherent sexism, gender disparity in terms of stat levels that can be gained, in terms of classes that can be gained. There's like weird pseudo racism in terms of like humans can breed with everybody, nobody else can, or you get bad mixes that don't work out.
It's like a eugenics kind of thing.
Yeah, it's kind of like weird eugenics-y. It's just like inherently baked into the game is that if these things mix together, something has gone wrong. It took many, many years of deprogramming to get to a point where it's okay to be any race, any class, any gender in D&D. And I'm glad we got there. But when this book was written, Margaret and Tracy took the iconic flaws of D&D and turned them into character moments and character growth and character development in a way that's really interesting.
The D&D rules are kind of their boundaries, and they can grow a lot within them, but they don't do a lot of breaking out of them, it seems.
No, if anything, they do more limiting than growth. Like, they made a bunch of deliberate decisions with Dragonlance. One, they wanted to avoid orcs. Orcs were the very common Tolkien enemy. They were common throughout every other D&D setting. And Tracy Hickman was like, we don't want orcs in Dragonlance. They avoided halflings. which were, hobbits and stuff like that, because he's like, I don't like a race that's just inherently thievish. These are cruel, amoral people who just steal things. They're burglars, they're Bilbo Baggins. He wanted a race of childlike, innocent people who, when they picked things up, the Kender...
We'll be meeting them soon.
When they picked things up, it was totally by accident. It was totally incidental. Yeah, they end up stealing stuff, but it was not on purpose. And it was only because it was pretty and interesting and not because they're trying to gain. So you see a lot of subversion that Tracy does in setting up this world that takes D&D tropes and just tries to change them.
There's a lot of racial essentialism in D&D.
Yes.
There's a lot of it in fantasy, right?
Oh, yeah, 100%.
There from the beginning for a long time, not just Tolkien, even before Tolkien, there was racial essentialism in this stuff. We were talking about half-elves being tragic. Loving v. Virginia was decided in 1967. So, we're not even...
Yeah, it's not even that new.
It's less than 10 years when D&D is released.
Right.
All this stuff is pretty radical, even for fairly conservative people putting this together. Introduce a race like that is pretty...
Yeah, but I think it's partly because in Tolkien, for instance, Strider is technically a half-elf, right? Isn't he?
Yeah.
So, there, of course, they want to have, some kind of,
Not directly, his mom's not, but, his great-great-great-great someone was.
Something like that.
And again, there's tragedy, right? Even from Tolkien. His love, Arwen, is...
Forbidden.
Yeah, it's forbidden, and it's inherently tragic.
Yeah, so that's kind of the background that we're working with here. These people were not coming from a place of modern enlightenment, let's say.
Yeah.
So Tanis and Flint meet up, and they discuss that they've been out for 5 years, but things have changed. There's a city called Haven somewhere, which has a group called the High Seekers, and these people have appointed a man named Hedrick to govern as a High Theocrat in Solus. So there's a group called the Seekers. They've got theocrats, so they're some kind of clergy, and this dude is now the boss of town, and he has turned the town into a hotbed of fanaticism with his new religion. So the Seekers are new enough that they can send people out and be controlling things without having had, so it must be within their lifetime that these people have shown up. And not even within their lifetime, but in the last 5 years while they were gone. So that is a very new religion.
Yeah. And then they mentioned that there's been persecution and inquisitions. We're learning that not only is this a new religion, but it's an intolerant new religion. It's trying to purify and seek out people who don't follow the new gods. And here is where we learn that Tanis is the product of a rape, right? It's a comment that Flint says in an internal dialogue, I believe.
Yeah. He says, wow, his friend had changed in 5 years, and elves never change. But then Tanis was only half-elven, child of violence, his mother having been raped by a human warrior during one of the many wars that divided the different races of Krynn or in the chaotic years following the Cataclysm. Right there, we find out real bad things have happened to cause Tanis to be who he is. And it really defines his character going forward in terms of for the rest of the many, many Dragonlance books, this kind of split of cultures, this split of illegitimacy that he's dealing with. It's a fundamental part of his character. For all that his origins are awful, I give Margaret and Tracy a lot of credit for developing it in a way that is real. It gives it a roundness to it. It's not just kind of a throwaway line. It's fundamental to his character, and they play it off really well.
Yeah, I didn't even know what rape was when I read this book.
Yeah, I didn't either. I'm sure I just looked at it and just kind of moved on.
Yeah, I either moved on or I went and asked my dad or my mom, and there was an awkward conversation about oh, well, that's what happens when people who have sex who don't love each other, right?
Yeah, I mean, who knows?
I know that it's a big deal because the book does a good job of saying it's a big deal. Like you say, it's fundamental to the character of Tanis. And so that comes across in just the comment he made about a gift from my human father, the inner dialogue that we have from Flint, oh, he's changed so much. We're already getting, like you said, we don't know yet that this is the fundamental conflict, it seems, in Tanis' life, but we're getting hints at it. And I think it does a really good job of giving us an insight of who Tanis is and the struggles we're going to see with him moving forward, perhaps. And
I give Margaret and Tracy a lot of credit for not just playing this off in a joking manner or in a kind of non-serious, throwaway line manner. No, they take this essence of sexual violence as an act of violence, and they treat it with respect. They give Tanis a lot of room to grow, and they never play it off as a joke or as an insult or anything, but it's just a fact of life that he's a product of this, and how he copes with it and grows is how he grows as a character. And they could have played it wrong. It's very easy to make this go sideways. I think that's one of the lines that they walked very well.
And it's neat to see the growth, I think, when you read the book. There's definitely growth there. And it's not something that is done off stage. It could have been a line, like you said, product of rape, and when he was younger, he had some problems dealing with it, but he's fine now. It treats these serious things that people have to deal with seriously, and it's nice that it's done on screen.
But like right in the beginning up front.
Yeah, and really, like, for a series of books that are framed for kids, it's for adults, but these books were for kids too.
They're made for like 12-year-olds, man.
It's serious stuff that they're dealing with. So, I mean, kudos to them for putting it in there, and like kudos to TSR who allowed it. Today, can you imagine if like you went to Hasbro for one of their like properties that's popular with children and said, hey, I want to put a story in where Cutie Pie, the My Little Pony. You only see this stuff in comics and sometimes in movies, right? Like, or serious literature, if you ever see it. But this is a kid's property. It's a big deal, and I think they did a good job.
They immediately set up the serious tone of this story right from the get-go. So Tanis and Flint are sitting there talking about the changes in the city, and then they start talking about what are they doing. Flint is like, I don't believe in the seeker gods. I never did, but I don't parade my beliefs on the street. Keep quiet and they'll leave you alone. And he's like, these high seekers in Haven are still wise and virtuous men, but this one guy in Solus is really awful. He starts talking to Tanis, and it comes out that these two went off for 5 years looking for the ancient gods. That's what they're looking for. The ancient true gods, they say. These
old gods, we would say. That,
yeah.
In comparison to the new gods that we've heard about so far.
Right. And so they found nothing, right? And Tanis is like, as we discovered long ago, the only clerics and priests in this world serve false gods. I heard tales of healing, but it was all trickery and magic. Fortunately, our friend Raceland taught me what to watch. Raceland, Flint puffed. That pasty-faced skinny magician? He's more than half charlatan himself. Him and his twin brother. We were suddenly discovering, there's two new characters, a mage and his twin brother. Little did we know that Raceland would go on to be one of the most famous characters in all of D&D and fantasy.
Well, and it's also setting up here because it says pasty.
Yeah.
We're going to meet Raceland soon, and he is not pasty.
Oh, no. That's a good thing. I never noticed that before. That pasty-faced skinny magician. Dang, how did I miss that?
Yeah.
I've read these pages thousands of times.
He's still skinny when we meet him, but he is not pasty.
Well, in a manner of speaking. It's really cool, though.
I think it's also important you point out, they talk about clerics. I don't know much, but I do know that cleric is a class type in D&D.
Yes.
They talk about magicians, right? Or mages. That's another class type.
Yep.
And here's another thing we're going to learn, or we can infer from this, is that clerics and magicians or mages do not do the same thing. They both have magic powers, but their magic powers are different.
Yes. And mages are here and clerics are not.
Yeah.
Because the clerics vanished 300 years ago during the cataclysm. So say the elders. Which is basically, okay, now we know what this capital letter cataclysm is. It's something that happened 300 plus years ago where all the clerics disappeared. Now, if you know anything about D&D, clerics are the priests of the gods. Clerics are healers. Clerics are people who protect. They give you, shielding magic. They give you healing magic. They turn zombies in D&D. They control the undead, whatever. They honor the god. So A, we know that the gods are gone. B, we know the clerics are gone. C, we know they left 300 years ago, which means no healing, which means this medieval world has been going through real bad things for 300 plus years.
Yeah, especially if you imagine a world that was dependent upon magic healing, and then all of a sudden they didn't have it. Then all the terrible stuff that we know that can happen to an infected wound when you don't have modern medicine, now here for them as well. We learned that on this quest, Flint mentioned a quest, he was coming back, Tanis mentioned a quest, and they say that they knew that the humans didn't have clerics, but Flint went back to the dwarves, and they also told them they don't have their clerics. Tanis went to the elves, and they also don't have clerics. So this is not a human problem.
This is a worldwide
problem.
Now, here's the thing. The Flint is 148. The cataclysm happened 300-something years ago. That means that Flint does not remember the cataclysm, and neither does Tanis, because Tanis is slightly younger than Flint, despite also being, elven and living a long time. But then...
I think he says that the elves do remember. There are elves that do remember the cataclysm.
Yes. There are, because elves can live over 300 years, so the very oldest elves definitely would probably remember the cataclysm. But then we learned something else about Tanis, which is that he's got the D&D trope of elven sight, which is he can detect the warm red aura cast by all living beings but visible only to elves, aka infrared night vision. D&D, like in these first few chapters of the book, they tried real hard to stick to the rules of the game before realizing that the rules were just holding the story back. But dwarves and elves and stuff, I mean, it's funny because even now, 20 years later, when they're writing Dragonlance stuff, they have to deal with the fact that first edition rules are still holding them. Like, even though dark vision is in modern D&D, dark vision is you see in black and white shadows up to about 60 feet out. In old D&D, like, they changed the definition for dark vision and night vision, like, in every edition. But in the one that you were using, you could see kind of like infrared halos around things. Sort of, it looked like...
It's like the Predator.
Yeah, the Predator. That's exactly it. Imagine if you're an elf looking at nighttime like the Predator. That must have sucked, like, all the time. They don't go over it very often, but think about it at nighttime. You're just waking up and it's dark and suddenly your house is just kind of glowing. And you're like, God, my eyes just suck all the time.
And so they're talking. We're learning all this stuff. So now we know what the cataclysm is.
Well, we don't know what the cataclysm, we know it happened.
We know what happened, right? We know 300 years ago, clerics disappeared. We know that there are new gods, that Flint doesn't believe them, that Tanis isn't really in on them, that they went looking for true gods. We know there are mages. So we're getting lots of bits and pieces. But before they could continue, though, they hear this weird howling sound, right? They call out, like you said, he sees something. They say, hey, who's there, right? This is still D&D land. As anyone knows in D&D, if you're in the forest, you're bound to have a random encounter with a group of baddies.
Mm-hmm.
So they hear this weird howling sound, and then they start hearing these insults thrown at Flint. As soon as they hear the insults, we know, like, the tension is erased.
Diffused.
Yeah, because Tanis starts laughing, Flint swears, in comes the replacement for hobbits, Tasselhoff Burfoot, he's a Kender.
I love this intro line. It's like, Elven wanderer, turn from your course and leave the dwarf behind. We are the spirits of those poor souls Flint Fireforks left on the barroom floor. Did we die in combat? The spirit voice soared to new heights, as did the whining, whirring sound accompanying it. No! We died of shame, cursed by the ghost of the grape for not being able to outdrink a hill dwarf. Flint's beard was quivering with rage, and Tanis burst out laughing, was forced to grab the angry dwarf's shoulder to keep him charging headlong into the bush. Damn the eyes of the elves, the spectral voice turned merry, and damn the beards of the dwarves. Wouldn't you know it, Flint groaned. Tasselhoff Burfoot.
So this is someone they know, and he comes out, and they're all old friends, and we find out almost immediately Tasselhoff hugs Flint, and as soon as he does, he
basically yanks his pouch.
He has Flint's purse in his hand. This is where we get it introduced to what a Kender is. Shivam already said they didn't want to have a race based on stealing, so they're childlike, full of wonder, and they don't quite understand the concept of privacy or property.
No.
Those are two things that they do not understand. It's a private conversation. The Kinders are going to listen to it. If you think you own it, the Kinders think they own it.
They believe in a very egalitarian, socialist system of being. Everything belongs to everyone. But yeah, it was a Kender, one of the race of people considered by many on Krynn to be as much a nuisance as mosquitoes. Small-boned, they rarely grew over 4 feet tall. These guys are just small, little, mischievous merrymakers, and the thing about Tasselhoff that made him iconic is that he had his hair pulled back in a really long top knot that just kind of came off and cascaded down his back. And he carried this thing called a hoopuck, which is a brand new, unique weapon these guys created, which is basically a big, tall staff. And on the bottom end of it is a small spear point that he can just plunk into the ground. And the top half forks into a sling. So you can either pull back a sling and use it like a slingshot, put a rock in it and spin the hoopuck around to launch it, sort of like David versus Goliath, or use it like a staff or a spear to do other cool things. This is like...
It's what was making the noise.
Yeah.
Right, it was hollow in some way, and you could spin it, and it makes weird noises.
Yeah, it's got like whistles and all sorts of weird tricks. But it's basically this was a brand new invention for Dragonlance. It didn't pre-exist in D&D, but it's one of the like iconic symbols of Dragonlance itself. It's a really cool item.
It's like a utilistaff, and I think there's lots of times in the story where it seems that when the story needs it, the utilistaff can provide the answer.
Yes. As they say, new roads demand a hoopuck, which was a popular saying among Kenderkind, followed almost immediately by their other saying, no road is ever old. Right there, you get the entire notion of what a kender is. These are guys who run around, they lift things, they take things because they're interested in them. They always travel. The wanderlust of a kender is one of the key kind of ideas of their class and race.
They're in the middle of this reunion before they can really catch up. They're stopped by the sound of a horse coming down the path. And here's where we're introduced to goblins.
Hobgoblins, especially.
No orcs, as Shivam was saying, but other trope of fantasy, the goblin definitely makes an appearance. This one, I guess hobgoblins are different. Really gross. They've described as pig-faced, mottled gray skin, flat, flabby body, wearing this flashy armor, trying to look... This is... I don't know how to describe it, right? It doesn't matter. It's like a pig in a...
Yeah, in silk, right?
Yeah, you can't make a pig look good. It doesn't matter the fancy armor you put on it. These guys, you would think that these are bad guys, but it comes out almost immediately that these are the town guards for Solace. And so I don't know if they were always the town guards for Solace, but I'm already thinking that something bad has happened because I know goblins are bad.
Right.
Everyone knows goblins are bad.
Exactly.
And if the goblins are the town guard, then...
something has gone horribly wrong.
And they immediately start talking about a blue crystal staff that they want.
But before we get there, let's talk about this hobgoblin, because one of the interesting things about him, he's one of my favorite characters in all of Dragonlance. He's a guy who calls himself Viewmaster Toad. Now, that is such a good name. Viewmaster. Really, that's your title? You're a master of 6 dudes? Not even High Master, not Boss, not anything. Viewmaster. And Toad. Well, that immediately tells you right here, this is a guy whose ego is inflated to the size of the sun, but is himself just a meaningless little lickspittle. Yes. He is looking for this thing called a blue crystal staff. He arrests the party right away and says, if they resist, kill them. Suddenly, Viewmaster Toad turns around and heads back to town. Flint, Tanis, and Tasselhoff are well, we're not going to sit here and let a bunch of goblins arrest us. They pull back their weapons and just are all right, buddies, bring it, because here we go, D&D, here's the first encounter you're going to have. It's against the iconic goblins, level 1 monsters.
Yeah.
And
they rolled really good dice.
Yeah.
All 3 of them, right? Even you would think oh, what good is the Kinder? But all 3 of them, put down 3 of them because they're goblins. They failed their morale check and they immediately flee. Even the little Kinder is deadly. There's a little line in there.
Yeah, so these goblins jump up, and Flint is the only creature I hate worse than a gully dwarf, and that's brand new too, is a goblin. And so the goblin dives at Flint. Flint takes his axe and lops his head off. Tanis goes, stabs through, and then out of nowhere, Tasselhoff pulls out a dagger after taunting the goblins. He taunts them into a rage such that they can attack him, because that's a Kender's inherent power, is taunting, which is they can sit, dance, insult you until you decide you want to, basically kill them to free yourself from this misery. So the goblin gets offended, runs at him. Tasselhoff, without ever losing his innocent, childlike expression, reaches into his fleecy vest, whips out a dagger, and throws it in one motion, thugging the goblin in the chest, calling it a day. And then Tanis is well, let me go get that dagger for you. And it's no, I don't want it back. You'll never get rid of the smell, you know? And as they're walking away, as the chapter ends, we find true nature of the character of Tasselhoff, which is, finally, the irrepressible Kender giggled. Besides, the dagger was Flint's! and scene. And with that, we suddenly have a brand new world. We have a vision of the new races that are in this world. There are goblins, humans, dwarves, elves, Kender. There's war. There's cataclysm happened. All the clerics are gone. Mages are still around, kind of, sort of. But what is coming? This idyllic vision that we saw of the blue lake of Crystalmere and the purple mountains of the Carolus is all going away all too quickly, only to find out what happens next.
Find out next time. But I wanted to do a couple questions here. We haven't met the whole party.
No.
Kind of talked about it, but this is very D&D.
Very D&D.
More so then than it is today, I think. There's a lot more flexibility in the rule set.
Yes.
This is by the books. We know there's an inn. We have an old man. He seems like who's setting up a party, right? That's your DM. We have a ranger. We have a dwarf warrior. We have a thief.
Mm-hmm.
We know about a mage, right?
Yeah.
By name, and his brother, who's also going to be
something.
There are only a couple classes that they haven't mentioned yet in the early D&D set. So, like, I almost kind of, like, guess where we're going here.
Yeah. I mean, it is very much the beginning. This is definitely like a session 1 of a D&D campaign, right? The party is gathering at an inn. There's going to be an old man who's going to be there. Apparently, there's a party later this evening that something's going to happen, and they're going to get sent on a quest. We're given like the iconic elf, dwarf, halfling. There's humans that we're talking about. We've got fighter, mage, thief, and clerics don't exist. So obviously, there's no cleric there, but maybe there'll be some kind of replacement.
What is new that we know so far that Margaret Weiss and Tracy Hickman, what have they put in? Like, we know kinders are new. That's new.
Yeah. Right now, the main new thing we've discovered here is in these 2 chapters is A, clerics aren't there, which is a big part of D&D. B, the main enemy is goblins, but there could be orcs later. There's no reason there couldn't be. But Kender are definitely the thief replacement, and that's setting us on this image that this is not your standard D&D game. This is someone's homebrew campaign. This is going to be different. We're going to find out as we go just how much they stick to D&D and how much they change it to fit their setting.
Thank you for joining us, and we hope to see you next time on the Dragonlance podcast.
Thank you.